Springs, you got some that just go boing, boing, boing. You got others that go kablam! Today we're going to talk about them. Welcome to the Garage 40 podcast, powered by A1. I'm your host, Jonathan Phillips, and today, sorry I keep doing that. Now it's an inside joke, so I'm always going to do an intro like this. But we have returning the one and only, the Academy instructor, the Andrew Rosenbaum is back.
Hello, everyone.
Hello,
Good to be back again.
Yes. Now, we did an episode already, and we're going to record again because we were talking about how garage door springs fatigue, what to look out as a homeowner. But there are some engineer-type people out there, maybe there's garage door technicians, or maybe homeowners that just want to know a little bit more about springs. And it can be... It's easy once you get it, but your first introduction to springs is like... Either people make it too simple to where they're like, a spring is a spring, or people are like, that what? You know what I mean? Like, this video, it has it above the door, but mine go down the side. Is that the same thing? You know what I mean?
Yeah, there are different types of spring systems.
Yes, absolutely. So I think the biggest spring systems that are used, I mean, there's going to be some garage door techs that are like, what about counterbalance systems and high-speed doors? We're talking about people's homes. We're talking about residential. Calm down, okay? What we're talking about is torsion versus extension springs. Ugh. So just to set it, if you are at home and you were in your garage, if you see a silver tube with springs on it, that means you have torsion springs. They twist, make latent energy that are counterbalanced to the door. Extension springs, where instead of twisting a spring, they run down the sides of your track and they extension springs. So I figured bringing an Academy instructor, someone that's actually been doing this longer than I have, would be able to get into the nitty gritty to explain your spring system, whatever you have at home. So I guess the first question would be, what's the basic difference that you see other than torsion and extension springs, like the applications? What makes a better torsion spring? What makes a better extension spring? What's the pros and cons?
There's definitely, I think, more pros with a standard torsion system.
Agreed.
Extension springs have a place.
Yeah.
I do believe they do. I wish I could get rid of them altogether, to be honest, but they have a place and a use. Mm-hmm. My biggest thing and dislike for extension springs, no matter how well your pulleys are, your cables, the springs, hopefully you have safety wires going through your springs. But no matter what you do, you could have the best motor, a good door. The door always kind of does a shimmy up and a shimmy down because there's no way to keep that system moving on the same parallel. They're kind of independent sides, right?
Right.
Where a conventional torsion spring system, you have your springs typically above the door. Mm-hmm. They're on your torsion tube, which is your safety. If the spring breaks, the springs can't go anywhere.
Right.
And that system just helps transfer that spring load, that muscle, all the way to your drums, to your cables, to the bottom of the door to provide that lift. Right. And that keeps it nice, smooth motion going up and down that you just can't get with even a perfect extension spring system.
What would you say is the early warning signs for someone with an extension spring system? Like we can start with the safety cables, right? And like situations that you've seen where they've gone bad and how a safety cable happens, but like visually, whether that door's in operation or the spring itself, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So what are those things that a homeowner could address? So
an extension spring system, one of the easiest ways to tell if your springs are bad or going bad is the coils themselves from getting pulled and contrasted. They'll start to not contrast back, and it kind of looks like somebody pulled an old
these little gaps.
Phone, the old phone cord when we had cords on the phones, and if you were trying to go to the other room with the 20-foot cord, and then you come back and it's all like wound up and the coils aren't quite as smooth as they used to be, your extension spring's doing that same thing. Yeah. It's getting stretched out and back so many times that over a while, it just stops coming back together. Yeah. And then your system goes a little bit not as equal. Tensions. Yeah, right? Yeah. The tension changes. It's one of those things where, again, if you have the space, I would love to convert it to a torsion system. Yeah. But in some, areas of the country and the setup on your door, You don't have that option. We don't have that headspace. So we have to go to that extension spring system.
Right. Now, getting back to the safety cable, if someone were to go out into their garage, what is a safety cable? What should they be looking for?
Great question.
Yeah.
So a safety cable connects your door track back hang all the way to the framing in the front. And that extension spring has that cable fed through it. So if that spring were to break, theoretically, if the safety cable is put in properly, the spring can only go anywhere on that cable. I've been to lots of jobs where guys skipped that safety cable step because it was something they didn't feel like doing that day, or they were never taught how to properly secure that system. And then you talk to your clients that are a little older before safety cables were even really a thing, and they'll tell you stories about when they were a kid and the spring broke and it bounced around the garage and stuck in the wall, or hit the car in the garage, or God forbid hit a person.
Yeah.
Safety cables are a big deal if you're running an extension spring.
Yeah. If you don't have a safety cable, get someone out there immediately. Like, you know, he's talking about going into a wall. I've seen it go through floors into bedrooms.
Oh, I haven't had that one.
Scott Cola, when he was on, he explained one to where they didn't have one. The extension spring broke and went towards the front of the garage, which is nice, but it hit the wall so hard that it broke out brick on the outside of it, right? Because some of those like old 1970s wood doors.
Yeah, the wood doors.
Yeah, to where they have the double yoke. So that's where they have 2 extension springs on each side.
Yep.
And the wire is so thick, it looks like a torsion spring. And like when one of those breaks, the saddest stories is that, there's statistics for a reason. And there's some people that weren't so lucky and they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. But I think one of the craziest thing about extension springs is whenever they break, compared to a torsion system you're talking about, like torsion, it's right there. If it breaks, it's all in the tube, the door's down, everything's fine. If you could explain what happens when one of these breaks on a door, even if we have the safety cable in place, what happens to the door?
I mean, a lot of things can happen.
Yeah.
Even with the safety cable, if you're lucky, the cable holds, the spring stays in that area, but it's still gonna, maybe take out some of the pulleys or jump that cable, because the cables are so long that it could release it, and then all of a sudden you have that secondary damage of the cable being loose and going around and hitting stuff. But if you try to open your door with a broken extension spring, you have one side trying to lift and the other side completely dead, and the door just wants to jam itself in the opening, right? That's why I love torsion springs, John.
Yeah.
Like a double spring torsion line, even with one spring broken in an emergency, that door is still gonna open.
Yeah.
You can
You can still undo it manually.
help it up. I mean,
Yeah.
you got to be that second spring or that extra muscle. But the way the torsion spring still sends the load to both sides of the door, the door's still going to want to open in a pretty parallel, even movement.
Yeah.
Extension springs, you don't have that luxury.
No.
It's like, hey, I can't go.
Well, that's the crazy part. So, I mean, usually the spring breaks once again whenever it's at its most extended position, right? So that's with the door being in the down position. The counterbalance is 2 independent systems, like you said. That one breaks. So then this side of the door goes like this.
Oh, you get the little peekaboo at the bottom.
And so now the door's stuck like this, and then you have an operator that goes to pull it. Because what I see most of the time when people have extension spring systems, they don't have the best motor either. So then they turn on that motor. Your door's already stuck sideways. Dude. And extension springs are usually on pan doors. Most of the time. Vinyl back doors as well. But most of the time when you see it nowadays. So then every time I see it, door went like this. It's a pan door with a thin gauge steel. They got the motor that's old on it.
And the 4 settings
rips that thing apart, dude, every single time. But I guess we've been bad mouthing it enough. Like,
you want to talk about some pros?
Yeah, let's talk. It's fair. It's fair. It's fair.
So some of the pros of an extension spring system, if you have a super low clearance garage and we don't have the headspace to put a spring system, a torsion spring system above the door, and we don't have space to do a rear torsion system, sometimes the best option is doing an extension spring system.
Right.
You
Because
know?
typically if you can fit track, most of the time you can do like a rear mount, but then there's like backspace to where these extension springs, I can kind of manipulate their angle. So I would say those builders, those weird shaped garages, those, I see them a lot whenever people have like, those houses where they have like a pool and then like a back bar area with kind of a mini door that opens.
Okay.
I see them in their cost. It's a little bit more
Well,
economical,
yeah.
right, for builders. So I can see those, but honestly, other than that,
It's still.
don't
If
see
I
it.
had to choose
Yeah.
for my family or my loved ones of what I would prefer to put in for them,
Mm-hmm.
there's no questions asked.
Right.
A torsion system is what I'd love.
Speaking of,
Hey.
let's move on to our favorite, the torsion system.
Yeah.
So I think a good question, because I think that people do understand, like from what we said earlier in the episode, springs above the door, torsion tube. You spin them, clamp them down. There's drums on the end, cables, as that spring becomes wound and unwound all the way through the door's motion. Okay. What are the biggest determining factors for people picking a spring? And I kind of want to explain to people maybe what a spring is made up of and what that means, like the wire size, the ID, the length, how to pick the right spring for your door, not only for IPPT purposes, but also like cycle
Longevity,
life.
cycles,
Yes.
right?
So those three things, go for it.
Okay. So picking the right springs for the door. Obviously, you need to have the right IPPT to balance the door and get it working properly. Now, when we talk about cycles, depending on a person's timeline in the property, if they're getting ready to sell versus this is their forever home, right? And it's their forever door, because that can be a whole nother can of worms.
Right.
But when we're talking springs with somebody that's calling us out for repair, we want to make sure we're getting them the right springs for their timeline in the home and their usage of the door, right? You could have a sweet old lady that only leaves her house 2 or 3 times a week to run errands or go to the doctor.
Right.
She's not in and out like a family of 6 that are in and out multiple times a day. That door is now the front door to the home for most of us. And putting on the proper cycle life spring is going to ensure a safe and reliable system for the timeline that they need it.
So the reason I brought this up is because another benefit of torsion compared to extension is extension springs. So the industry standard is 10,000 cycles. So that is like the bare minimum that should be done on any part for your garage door. Obviously, over time, that's not enough for people. But with extension springs, there isn't a grade because they're color coded for weight.
That's it.
That's it.
It's just
That's,
the
so
IPPT.
it's just the counterbalance that it can do for that door. So there's not like, well, I can use this spring or this extension spring on this door based off my needs or usage. There's just one, 10,000. That's it. And it's just off the weight. That's it. With torsion springs, you can get more into that. Fine tune it to
give
people's
options.
needs. Yes. So that's the biggest thing. And what I wanted to also, let's say you're originally, like, you're from like the New York area, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you had a family member out there and they said, hey, because we don't have A1 Garage in New York yet. But if they're like, hey, I'm having a garage door company come out, what should I ask them to make sure they're putting the right torsion spring on the door?
Yeah.
Right? Like the IPPT, make sure it's the correct spring. What's something a homeowner can test a garage door technician if they know what they're talking about?
You can ask them how they check the balance after the system's been repaired, how they know which spring to put on the door, and let them explain to you how they do the math and calculate the weight of the door with the type of drums to get the proper spring and IPPT. And then, do they have options for different quality springs for timelines, right? Most other companies don't carry that many options. You know, it's hard to carry that many. So a lot of the maybe lesser, smaller companies will carry a lesser stock, and they might carry, you know, a 15 or 25,000 cycle spring. and your standard 10,000 cycle spring.
Right.
That's why I love A1. We have industry leading 80,000 cycle proprietary springs for that homeowner that's not planning on going anywhere. They know that their family of 6 uses the door 10 plus times a day. It gives them more value and peace of mind for their system,
Right.
for the years to come, right?
Yeah. I think what I would like in this industry more is training. There's a lot of people out there that, I mean, we have an academy and a school. Our stuff aligns up with the IDA, which is our governing body, that to where we go into, and our students do realize that drum, track type, door size, door weight to pick a spring. If a client wanted to know like a 218 by 2 by 27 spring on the side, hey, 218 is the wire size. There's a 2-inch ID on that spring. 27 is the length. And then also our students can go as deep as to tell you how each of those numbers affect cycle life and IPPT. You know what I mean? So if you really want to learn about springs, like these are the types of questions that you can ask any garage door guy. If you're going to call someone from A1, they're going to have answers for it. There's a lot of companies that can also answer that. But if they can't explain what me and Andrew are talking about, nope. Find another company.
Just to throw this out there too, you know, those springs, is your door 7 foot or 8 foot?
Yeah.
Because you can have the exact same weighted door, put the exact same springs on. If it's 7 foot, you're probably going to get more cycles out of that spring than an 8 foot because you're adding that extra wind. You're taking some of that cycle life away to get that door up
the
higher.
more tension you have to put on it. And I think what's also crazy is when people want to adjust torsion springs after they've been old for a long time. Like it's been up there at one point, so it was balanced. It's fatiguing, which means it's about to break. And then you want to put more turns on it that ensure it's going to break, which by the way, it's not fixing anything. You're just like, now it's not heavy at the ground. Now it's too hard for the motor to push down from the open position. So you just reverse the problem.
Yeah.
So these are the type of things that I wanted people to understand about springs, extension springs, the pros and cons, even though some lists might be a little bit shorter than others. But now you know. Now you can actually pick a good spring, pick a good company. You know the difference, and you can make the best decision for your home. Andrew, any closing thoughts on this subject for our listeners?
One thing I think most people don't realize too is even if you have the best company, the right springs on the door, most of the time you want to get that door checked after the first year.
Yeah.
Because the springs are going to relax and settle, you know? So why not have it just checked? At that point, they can do a little fine tuning and make sure your system stays nice and balanced.
Dude, thank you so much for coming
You're
on
welcome.
again.
I appreciate
it's always
it,
a
yeah.
pleasure.